Hi, everybody. This is Jeff and Tony Brabeck, the founders of Our Little Sparrows. Our firstborn, Olivia Hope Brabeck, died in our arms just 5 hours after she was born. We have also experienced the loss of two other children through miscarriage. Tony is a certified birth and bereavement doula, and both of us are certified grief and recovery methods specialists. We've combined these two services to create Our Little Sparrows. This is episode 1 of our new grief series. Welcome.
Has your unborn baby been given a life-limiting or fatal diagnosis during pregnancy? In this video, we are going to discuss some of the terms you'll hear or see like life-limiting or fatal diagnosis. We will clarify their definitions so you can have a better understanding of what is being communicated to you.
Subscribe to our channel and ring that bell to get alerts for when we release content weekly. Stick around, we're going to get started right now. Everyone's story is unique and individual. We will share what we did, what worked for us, and what didn't work. You will identify with some of what we're sharing, but again, your experience is unique to you alone, and that's okay. This is not a platform for political, ethical, or moral debate. We are not medical experts, nor are we professionals. This is simply us sharing our personal story in hopes that it will encourage you and others going through a similar pregnancy by offering guidance with tips and tools to consider.
Today, we are sharing how our grief journey began, and for us, that day was the day we received the diagnosis for our firstborn, Olivia Hope. It was a day we were not anticipating. Up until that point, our pregnancy was normal. Our prenatal testing and ultrasound results showed that our baby was healthy and growing. We were excited to become new parents. It was at our 20-week ultrasound when everything changed. Technically, we were at 19 weeks. Our sonographer had some difficulty viewing everything, and our baby was in an odd position, so we weren't able to find out if the baby was a boy or a girl. The sonographer recommended we follow up with our OB. Needless to say, we left a little disappointed and a bit concerned as we weren't given a whole lot of information. The next day, we received a call from our OB office, not about our ultrasound results, but one of our prenatal tests was flagged for possible Down syndrome. We were being referred to maternal fetal medicine specialists to meet with a genetic counselor, and another ultrasound would be performed to confirm if there was Down syndrome. We were told that often these test results are a false positive.
So when we went to that appointment, we were expecting to hear whether our baby had Down syndrome or not. The doctor came out, and the expression on her face was very serious. She explained to us what was wrong with our baby. That they couldn't see the kidneys. They weren't even sure if there might be one kidney. And they basically told us that without the kidneys, there'd be no amniotic fluid, and they couldn't even possibly see a bladder. So it's all just bad. And ultimately, without amniotic fluid, the baby cannot develop her lungs, and it makes it a very uh, dark prognosis.
I heard words that made no sense to me, except when I heard the word fatal. And even then, that took a while for it to sink in that our baby wasn't going to live. Our hearts broke that day. Our lives changed that day. We were left with so many questions that couldn't be answered. We suddenly had no idea what the future held for us, except for one thing: our daughter was going to die. One of the moments that sticks out to me is in the few minutes of hearing all these words from our doctor and then feeling confused and overwhelmed with trying to figure out what they meant. Some of these words I had never heard of before, or I never even thought to consider what they meant. So I wanted to highlight with you some of the words I heard and what I discovered. So, first of all, prognosis versus diagnosis. I've heard them so much that I didn't even realize there is a difference.
Yeah, neither
So,
did I.
yeah.
Not at all.
And I've been using them, not really realizing what the meaning of each word was.
Right.
So, we'll go over them a little bit here. So, prognosis is a guess or a prediction of the outcome of treatment. A lot of times confused with diagnosis, which is identifying the problem, and that problem has a name. So then I often hear life limiting prognosis or life limiting diagnosis. So, life limiting is a term or an adjective used to describe a medical condition that has no cure and is expected to cause a person to die earlier than expected. So, this could mean the baby could die in utero, or the baby could die within minutes or hours after being born, or the baby could even potentially live days, weeks, even years. However, they most likely will require ongoing treatment and care. Fatal diagnosis is a terminal illness or end stage disease that cannot be cured or adequately treated and is reasonably expected to result in the death of a patient. In our case, the fatal diagnosis was renal agenesis, no kidneys, which resulted or led to receiving the life-limiting prognosis. Clearly, the outcome of this diagnosis is grim. So next, I've heard a lot is incompatible with life. Now, there isn't an exact definition for this term. What I understood it to mean is that the expectancy and quality of life of the patient is poor or low, and we should prepare for the worst. I've heard these terms a lot in different circles, medical and non-medical. They are used interchangeably, but in my opinion, generally mean the same thing. The baby is not expected to live. If they do live, it is not very long. Some parents find this term, or actually all of these terms, to be offensive. And who can blame them? It's difficult to hear their baby labeled with limitations or as incompatible. It goes against our nature as parents. I don't think either of us were personally offended by these terms. I think we were just trying to process everything as it came to us.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back on it and remembering it's a lot of it's a blur. I'll be honest, when we're in there, but it's kind of a out of body experience. You're there, but you're not there. A lot of it's just numbing because you're hearing things for the first time. We can't find any kidneys. There might be one kidney. There may or may not be a bladder. And if there are no kidneys, then she won't produce amniotic fluid. And if she doesn't produce amniotic fluid, then the lungs don't develop, and she won't be able to breathe on her own. Even if you do make it to full term, I mean, not even full term, right? Even if you make it to giving birth and she's alive, like there wasn't even a guarantee that she was going to be alive when she was born. And if she is, she's not going to be able to breathe on her own. Mm-hmm. And basically they can keep her on a ventilator or something, mm-hmm. Where they're inflating the lungs, but that's the short term too. And she's just like, if everything's the way we think it is, then this is a fatal mm-hmm. diagnosis and your baby will not live. And then it's basically, do you want to continue the pregnancy or not? Mm-hmm. That's your choice. Yeah, it was crazy. There's a lot of information to take in one go. Like diagnosis day is mm-hmm. huge, overwhelming mm-hmm. to say the least.
I think it's important to remember as you're hearing everything for the first time that you're not going to necessarily remember everything that their doctor or your care provider is telling you. And you may actually remember things differently from each other.
Oh, yeah.
As you share later on, you find like, no, I actually remember it differently. And that's okay because you're each processing the information on your own and you're taking out of it what you take out of it. And that might be different than your spouse or your partner. And that is okay. And just to kind of go back to our original point of how you feel about these terms, however you feel about it is okay. Everyone feels differently. Some might have maybe feel a little bit like those terms are either offensive or they just don't like them.
Right. I think it's different for everyone. Some people get a lot out of it, and other people are like, I don't like those terms don't mean anything. I want to talk about my baby.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Either way is okay.
To each their own, for sure.
There's probably a lot of other terms that even we ourselves aren't even aware of. And we'd love to hear what your experience is. So if you would like to, we'd love for you to share your experience in the comments below of the things that you've heard and how it made you feel.
Right. And we do the best we can to respond to as many comments as possible. Obviously, there's only so many hours in the day, so depending on how many comments we get, sometimes we don't get to all of them, but we definitely do our best to do that. So we'd love to hear from you. That's what this community is all about. It's to learn from each other.
This can be hard to process, and it's okay if we don't or can't figure it all out. We hope you found this episode helpful, and ultimately, we hope you feel you are not alone. You are loved. Your baby will always be cherished. We are here to support you in any way that we can. We'd love to share more with you.
Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, you guys, to get alerts for when we post new content weekly. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. If you like what you saw in this video, click on the next video in our grief series here. You can also click on our weekly video podcast here.